Hello, I'm Jay Hirsch, Director of Administration of Columbia's ERM program. I'd like to invite you to tonight's event, our featured alumni panel for spring of 23. Throughout the event, you may post any questions you have using the Q&A feature at the bottom of the screen. Questions will be answered at the end of the event. I'd like to tell you about some of our upcoming events that you may be interested in. This weekend, we launch our 4 ERM seminars. On Fridays, we have our coding for risk management and our applied coding for risk management seminars. On Saturdays, we have our IQRM and our Intro to Finance seminars. On February 8th, we're running a panel on the rapid rise in U.S. interest rates. On February 9th and on select Thursdays after that, we have our Exploring the Power of Mindfulness seminars. On March 7th is our next CRO Spotlight series, this one featuring Simeon Fishman of the Clearinghouse. And on April 3rd, another panel, this one, the expected changes to cyber risk disclosures and governance. And now I'd like to introduce tonight's moderator, Shreen Williams. Shreen.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first Columbia Featured Alumni panel for 2023. We are super excited to have you this evening, and we're even more excited to have a very healthy dialogue with our esteemed panelists this evening. So first up, I am Shreen Williams. I will be both your host and your moderator this evening. I'm a current SPS student who is a candidate for a master's in ERM, and my anticipated graduation date is spring of 2024. In addition to being a part-time student, I am also a full-time risk practitioner for a global technology firm. And I have a very significant amount of experience as a practitioner where I have led the development and maturation journeys for ERM programs throughout various industries. So enough about me. I'd like to shift gears and introduce you to our panelists tonight. First up, we have Karthik Dalawi. Karthik, could you please briefly introduce yourself to our guests?
Hey, thank you, Shreen, and good evening, everyone. I'm Karthik Dalawi. I currently serve as the Chief Risk Officer of the Penn Mutual Life Insurance Company, and I'm a graduate of the Masters in ERM program from SPS from summer 2017 class. And next, if I can hand it over to Audrey.
Yep, thanks, Karthik. Next up, we have Audrey Ding. Audrey, could you please introduce yourself to our guests?
Yeah, of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Audrey Ding. I graduated from Columbia's ERM program in spring 2021. I am currently an associate at Societe Generale at the corporate investment banking side. I'm overseeing the credit risk at the portfolio level, and then also the governance on the portfolio risk analysis. So nice to meet you, and hopefully we can have a good discussion tonight.
Thanks, Audrey. And last but certainly not least, we have Madeline Kessenover. Madeline, if you could please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming today. My name is Madeline. I'm a Vice President and Compliance Risk Management Officer at Citi. Currently, I'm working on strategic control initiatives specifically as it relates to our compliance risk assessments from a technology and data management perspective. My team's responsible for enhancing data quality, enabling compliance solutions, and ensuring a seamless user experience. I'm also a teaching associate in the ERM program for strategic risk management. I was a TA last semester, and I'm coming back this semester as well. And I graduated the ERM program in August of 2022, so less than a year ago. And I'm really excited to be here with all of you today. I appreciate you having the opportunity, and hopefully you'll find some of what I have to say to be helpful or insightful. I'll pass it back to you, Shreen.
Thanks, Madeline. I'm sure we will find everything you have to offer tonight beyond insightful. So thanks to all of our panelists for the introductions. And so now it's time to shift gears and have a bit of fun. So first things first, let's have a bit of a lightning round here. All right, so I'm going to put this question out there to kickstart our discussion and break the ice a bit. I'm going to throw this question out there to each of our panelists. And so Karthik, let's just start with you. The question is, can you share a tangible ERM success that you experienced at your current company after having applied some teachings from the Columbia ERM program and the impact or value that it added to your organization?
Absolutely. And I became the CRO of Penn Mutual in 2021. And right before that, I was leading the ERM function at Penn Mutual. And at the onset of pandemic, and what's more interesting than leading the risk function for a life insurance company in the midst of a pandemic. So now everything that I learned, both from the program and what I applied at my job in the run up to the pandemic, kind of helped me manage holistically what I would call the different facets of risk that face the organization. And it's just not financial, but it's operational, technological, and the people or the cultural aspect of going completely remote in a span of over the weekend. The organization went like 99% remote. And that's a big shift the way we engaged. And instead of us sitting in individual cubes, we were squares like how we are today in this on a monitor. And how do you embrace that change, and how do you holistically manage and set the path for the future from that standpoint, where on hindsight we know how long it lasted and how things played out, but at the onset, how do you ready yourself and how do you build that resilience? We have done this, and know as a life insurance company, pandemic has always been one of the risks that we have considered, but from a mortality standpoint, not at the scale of the operational no shakeup it provided us. And now having the holistic approach to risk management and looking at risk from a strategy viewpoint and looking at strategy through the risk viewpoint, that I thought those are the key skills that I learned from this program that I could easily apply to my day-to-day job and kind of be that counsel to different leadership across the organization as we kind of went through the change. And now we are on the other side of it, and now stronger and better, and all that came from the program.
That's a really great answer. Thank you so much for that, Karthik. I love how you emphasized the holistic aspect of the work that you're doing and how it's cross-functional, right? It is not just about any type of particular category of risk, any business function, it's all encompassing. So really do appreciate that. And so Audrey, if you don't mind, same question.
Yeah, of course. I definitely agree with Karthik. So the one thing that I learned the most from, or most helpful from the program, is to teaching me the foundation and the framework of ERM as a whole. So before doing this program, I was in a consulting firm. I didn't have that much experience in risk management, so it was a totally new arena category for me. But after the program, when I joined this job, I was able to clearly understand what a ERM framework is, what are the different risk stripes, how do each risk stripe play with each other, and that better helped me understand my role as a credit risk officer and how to balance out the portfolio, monitor different credit risk at different levels. And one exercise that we did this year was the annual RAFs campaign, risk appetite campaign, and the risk ID campaign, which happens to be in the program on the risk ID side. So I introduced some of the tools that we learned from the program to our colleagues in Societe Generale. And it was a really very successful exercise that we did. So that's definitely one key takeaway from the program. And I think that's very practical into daily use, and to see that I'm actually contributing value to the company as a whole. It's very exciting.
I love that. Thank you so much for emphasizing the impact, right? And I love that we're having these conversations about impact and how you're applying the principles from the program in a time that's just like risk is running wild in the universe. And so it's really good to hear how we're able to use the disciplines and the competencies we're learning in the program and actually practically applying them to these huge organizations that you work for. So thank you so much. And last but not least, Madeline, same question.
Sure. So it was really helpful to hear both Audrey and Karthik's experience. I had a very similar experience with Audrey. Prior to the program, I wasn't working in necessarily like a risk management space. I was more in like a client facing, like sales related type of role. But through that, I was able to kind of gauge an interest in risk because I interacted with people that were in the risk space as part of my regular role. And from there, being in the program and pursuing the degree, I was able to expand my expertise in specialized risk management fields, which prior to I didn't have any exposure to. So this kind of opened up, other areas that I didn't even really understand at the time that were parts of the risk world. And because of that, I was actually able to pivot into different kinds of roles. Currently, I'm working in compliance risk. I didn't come out of school going into a compliance risk related role. That's very new to me. But because of the technical skills that I gained through the ERM program, and effective communication skills that I've been able to also build, I've been able to get buy-in from both my key internal and external stakeholders. And because of that, in my current role, I have a lot of exposure to other senior leaders and executives, just being able to connect with partners from all across the organization. I love the strategic nature of it. And I think just having, the degree is just such an incredible asset because of the skills and technical teachings that I've been able to pick up along the way. So
I love that as well. And I love the technical piece, but I also love that you hit on the soft skills, right? And so you learned them here, but you're actually talking about how you had the opportunity to tactically apply them in your day-to-day and how that engagement is so crucial, right? All the frameworks in the world, but unless you can actually strategically engage, communicate, sometimes it can be viewed as technical jargon in the corporate world, but you can actually translate it to layman terms and get people's buy-in in your organization. Those soft skills, I would argue, are imperative. And so that's great to hear. We're learning a lot of technical competencies here, but we're also building upon our soft skills as well, which are necessary to navigate the corporate world. So thanks everyone for all of those great answers. And so now we'll shift gears and we're going to move into the discussion, right? And the lightning round was really good. So, grab your popcorn because I'm sure that the rest of this conversation is going to get better. So first up, Audrey, could you speak to the course that you took during your ERM studies here that you found to be the most rewarding and the most applicable to your current role?
Yeah, definitely happy to share. The first one that I want to talk about is strategic communication. I highly recommend that course. As we all know, communication is a key skill to have in any type of job, any type of role. I want to say, especially in risk management, because you're talking to different stakeholders all the time. You're talking to first line of defense. At the same time, you're liaising with other colleagues on the second line of defense. And then you're talking to regulators, internal auditors. So your communication skill plays a huge role in the success of your job. So that course really led me to my success today. It gives me confidence in how to do presentations, how to present myself, how to speak confidently with my knowledge to share. So highly recommend that course. And another one that I think is very helpful is financial risk management. And that's more related to the field that I'm interested in. So when I first started the program, I was kind of just giving everything a try. I don't know if I'm into operational risk or I'm into financial risk or I'm into compliance. But then later on throughout the program, I kind of defined a path for myself. I think I'm more into financial related credit risk, counterparty credit risk, stress testing, anything that deal with number. I'm super happy about it to see. I love spreadsheets. So I think financial risk management gives me a good foundation in my work today, including what is the fundamentals of stress test, what is credit risk, what is obligor default, what kind of risk factors are you looking for as a risk officer when you're approving a credit, what are you looking for, what are the economic factors. So those are really good foundational knowledge for me, and I kind of connect the dots with what's on the book versus what's in the real life. Because whatever is going on in our economy today has the impact on our financial risk and on the firm itself, on the P&L directly. So I highly recommend financial risk management if anyone is interested in finance related. That's my answer. Hopefully that's helpful, but I understand a lot of people don't like spreadsheets. So
yeah, so I was going to say, you have to be a special kind of human to adore spreadsheets. And so if you're one of those people who love spreadsheets and numbers, there you are. Or just sold you on all things financial risk management at the program. And so I'm not a panelist, but I have a plug here because I actually have a really good course that I took this past semester. It's my favorite thus far. Slight edge over the value-based program, but it is the operational risk management course that I took. And not just that the professor was amazing and the context of the course and the assignments and the projects were great, but what I thought is that course was just so relevant to everything that was going on in the world in terms of the global business environment, but also to the risk landscape, right? It's literally, I say the world is a walking risk register right now every day at work, and I mean it. And so the class not only helped me get a better handle on how to proactively identify those operational risks, but also gave me that tactical rigor that I needed to operate in my current ecosystem to connect the dots, right? And so operational risks are interconnected to all those other areas of risk you talked about. So strategic risk, financial risk, they're all interconnected to the operation, right? The people, the processes, and the systems. And so that is a course that I really enjoyed this past semester. And like I said, I was able to take a lot of those tactical teachings and apply them in my day-to-day role in the tech sector. So thank you so much for that. Next question, this is coming to you, Madeline. All right, so can you discuss how the knowledge and the skills that you gained during your studies here helped you deepen your technical competencies and your capabilities as a risk professional?
Of course. And do you mind if I just really quickly just give a class that I really enjoyed?
Go for it. We want to know what your favorite
Sorry,
class is.
I'll make it quick, but I did want to just add, in addition to the great classes that both Shreen and Audrey mentioned, I really enjoyed value-based enterprise risk management. That was probably my favorite course. It's one of the foundational courses to the program. What it was a deep dive into all the major ERM activities, and you really see the benefits of what a value-based ERM approach is. I personally see it in my everyday work. I find myself referencing my textbook. I actually have it right here next to me. And so, through that, I've been able to learn how to quantify certain types of risk, really understand the shareholder value and the impact that it'll have on that. And also understanding, for me, which is important, risk appetite, because that relates directly to my role and what I'm doing every day. So I'm working with risk appetite and risk assessments. I'm doing it from a tech and data perspective, but still I do need to understand it fully. So I just wanted to add that really quickly, Shreen. But I'd love to get to the next question too. And
Madeline, before you do that, I
yeah.
think everything that you said, and I practice value-based risk management every day at Penn Mutual, and it's one of the reasons that got me a job with the organization, because that's the framework that we follow at Penn Mutual, and it's truly valuable. And I get asked time and again, what's one really great thing about the risk management practice at Penn Mutual? I say it's the value-based framework. Having that one metric to measure all your risk and knowing how it works and how it interconnects all the dots spread across the organization, be it financial, strategic, operational, it's really invaluable. And that's the reason even why I came to this program. And I'm happy to practice it for 6 years now. So
I'm sure Sim Siegel is beaming from ear to ear after you guys just gave rave reviews. I agree. I do appreciate the quantification aspect that class lends to your capabilities in your day-to-day, especially for those operational risks that are sometimes hard to quantify as easily as the financial. I also think for me, one of the best teachings that I learned in that class was that ERM is a strategic tool, right? If you use it the way it's supposed to be, if you optimize it, if you integrate it into the culture and embed it in the DNA of the business, it literally becomes a strategic tool for you, right? You can get ahead of those uncertainties before they come to your doorstep. You can maximize the upside of those uncertainties if it's something that is optimal to the company. And the one I love to shout every day to the board and all the other external stakeholders is the assurances, right? It gives you those strategic and operational assurances because you know what your risks are, the ones that have a downside. But it also allows you to put those mitigants and management tools in place to actually withstand them, to either prevent them from happening or to diminish the impact when and if it does materialize. And so I agree, that was a great class here as well. So everyone got their say about their favorite class? All right, we're gonna get back to our program. So Madeline, I'm gonna repeat the question because it was a moment or two since we were there. So the knowledge or the skills that you gained during this program that help you, deepen your technical competencies and your capabilities as a risk professional. You spoke a little about that earlier about how prior to the program, this wasn't like your innate expertise, but through the program and your teachings, you kind of pivoted and you're now in a senior leadership role at your company.
Yeah, that's a good question, Shreen. So again, the ERM program, it has helped me better understand and manage the risks that my organization's facing. Personally, I feel like I've gained so much knowledge that I've been able to use personally to enhance our compliance. Because of my increased awareness of the business risks, as I'm sure most of the folks on this call know, risk does exist in all lines of business. Having worked in both the first line and the second lines of defense, as we call it, I've been exposed to the different kind of areas of risk. And because of what I've learned through the program, I've been able to think critically, and also ask the right issues, right? So that's really important too, because when I'm in a meeting with a bunch of, stakeholders, like I need to be able to come to the conversation and be able to kind of think on the spot, kind of look at anything that's being proposed as a potential solution, or maybe we're having a problem. Like I need to be able to give my input, like I'm being relied upon to provide that valuable feedback as like a risk SME, subject matter expert. So I mean, that's really been important for me. And also, as I mentioned before, like my communication skills that I've been able to enhance through some of the courses here in the program, like that's also been tremendous in helping me be successful for that. As a compliance risk officer, something that's innately really important is fostering a more robust risk culture, and then also being able to manage that risk according to the organization's ERM framework. And so that's absolutely critical to my role, being able to think about risk differently. In exchange, what that does is that it leads to more informed decision-making, and it ultimately reduces the risk, right? So you're understanding your organization's most critical priorities, and then you're also welcoming new ideas to deliver what those best solutions are. Something I like to think of is risk is often the function that is involved kind of on the ground floor. And if think about it in like history terms, risk managers are the first invited to, those high level situational analysis and, environments, and they often have good access to senior management. So, it is a profession that does have a bit of, pressure, but with that comes a lot of like opportunities to shine. And so that's been really positive. And, senior management, they've become really aware of the value that risk management plays, especially now more than ever, because, it relates a lot to reputation management, preventing losses. Those are all really critical for them. And just the last thing I want to mention for this question is another benefit that's really helped me too is just meeting and working with people from all diverse educational and professional backgrounds. That's been absolutely important for me. I'm meeting with other, when I was in the program, meeting with other students, hearing what their personal experiences are when we're working on case studies together. It's not always one size fits all. And, so just discussing kind of what are some potential solutions to, kind of issues that we might have in a project, or what's the best route to identify like a risk and opportunity, it really does create an interesting and dynamic classroom discussion. And so fortunately that's where a lot of the ideas are generated, and I've been able to take a lot of the ideas and kind of apply them in my role. So
that is so good. And again, I love how you always bring in your soft skills right in there with that technical, because they're both relevant. And I like the analogy of the ground floor. I used to say an octopus, because I say we have tentacles all across the business. And it really is true that you have to get out of your seat, right? This is not a silo-oriented role. You literally have to get out there in the organization, meet people where they are, and engage with those stakeholders, right? Because you have to figure out what the opportunities are so you can circle back and ultimately collaborate to make solutions, right? Which is what Madeline said. And Madeline, you ran out a laundry list, right? You're a risk advisor, you're a SME, you are a confidant of the executives, you have to be a storyteller when you're getting in the room talking about these things. And so it is a very well-rounded role. And I heard you say a little bit of pressure, but I think hearing everything that this program has equipped you with, plus all your day-to-day on-the-job tactical experience, I think you're handling it, with a breeze. And I don't even know you personally, but it sounds like you know what you're doing. So that's a really, really good illustration of the robustness of both the role, but also the teachings that have helped you navigate in your career. So I love that. And if you don't mind, Karthik, I'd love for you to get in, try to contribute to that very same question.
Sure. And I would say in great points where Madeline, I think, she covered it really well. And the one thing I would just add to that is, at the end of the program, it conditions your mind to think differently, think better, right? So that's critical, because you keep practicing, and at the classroom, it's one of the key things of the program is they don't just teach you these skills, they let you practice these skills in the classroom, but not different assignments, different projects. So by the time you graduate, you start critically thinking like a risk management professional, which I think is key. So you can hit the ground running, and the part of the profession is you need to face time with a lot of senior executives in any organization, irrespective of the role you do, right? Now, Madeline's world and Audrey's world and your world, I think that's true. And so you need to connect with them. And that's where I think that the rhyming thing in this conversation, all of us are saying is there are technical skills and there are soft skills. And the soft skills are because we are pitching so much on the soft skills, which will be surprising because it's not all modeling work and fonts work, it's a people related work as well. And that's what now, so you talk to people, you connect with them, and then the way you structurally compartmentalize things, the data that you get, and kind of condition it for their consumption, I think that's critical. And this program does a great job in not doing that.
Yeah, and I agree. Again, that hybrid of those soft skills, those technical hard skills. I also forgot to add, you get a little bit of wizardry. You become a wizard after this program because you have this gift where you're able to put people together in your professional ecosystem that most often wouldn't even think that they had a relationship or a reason to collaborate. And it's because of the interconnectedness of the risk, right? And so we have like this beautiful 30,000 foot overview of all the risk posts of the company. And we'll say, hey, we need to get this cybersecurity leader connected with this, operations, leader. And maybe on a day-to-day before we got involved, they would never think to interact, right? I think the beauty of ERM is that it forces you to go beyond the silos, right? To do it effectively, you have to come out of your bubble, you have to come out of your silos, and you have to collaborate. And I think we, as the practitioners in-house, are literally the orchestrators of that, because if we don't encourage that, if we don't foster that culture of collaborative, engagement, they won't do it on their own, right? And so I think that's a key skill that I gained from my teachings thus far and in my second year of the program, but I become more effective at getting people to work together that normally may have been on the other sides of the aisle or different subsidiaries, because I make them see how more similar they are than they're different, right? We all have the same goal. We want the company to reach their goals. We want to win. And so we're better in numbers. So getting people to collaborate that normally wouldn't do it day to day is a really unique gift that I think you learn just holistically throughout your studies in this program. All right. So let's not picking on you today, Madeline, I promise, but this is a great question. I think, you could probably provide some insight based on your story you've told us thus far, but tell us a little bit about how your professional profile and your value proposition, right, as a candidate in the market, as a candidate in the sector, how that changed after finishing this program.
No problem. And Shereen, just to make sure you directed that question towards me, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. So yeah, so that, oh man, I have a lot to say. So, I guess I'll start by saying, as everyone knows here, risk management is a field that's fast growing, right? And the work offers a tons of benefits. It's allowed me to be versatile in my career paths. I don't really have a linear career path. Like it's not like I started like in, compliance and ended it. Like, no, I've been in I've worn many hats. Is kind of what I like to say. And a lot of those areas are different areas of specialization. So I've worked in anti-money laundering risk, which was AML risk. I worked in operational risk and control. I worked in the finance department doing risk and control. Now I'm in a compliance risk, but my compliance risk job is more centered on technology and data. And that's not something that I was ever like, I've been parts of that in the past, but that was never like the sole focus of my role. So, being a lifelong learner, I do enjoy the ongoing education and the professional development opportunities that come with the different, different paths that I've taken, just helping my organization navigate new challenges. And then I've been able to apply what I've learned in kind of like what I've been able to apply like in my previous role, I'm able to apply in my current role. So like, it's like all my skills just kind of continue to build off each other. And so that's been really great. It's not that, I've only done, one thing in the past, I can't do anything else. It's like, I'm really leveraging everything that I'm learning and every single experience kind of to take me to the next step. And so that's been something, really special to me. So, for anyone considering career options beyond the traditional paths of say, accounting or finance, risk has several opportunities, right? You just kind of have to do some research and, speak to people. But, that's, in my opinion, the fact that I've been able to leverage those different skills from the different roles that I've had in the past, that's helped me be successful today. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really great. I think that's a great segue into the next question I have when you're talking about professional futures, right? And so Audrey, if you don't mind, if you could share a few pro tips, right, for students who don't have that much or none at all in terms of professional experience, what are some recommendations or pro tips you have for those students who are embarking or set to embark on their job search in the sector as they are approaching graduation?
Yeah, definitely. So I think my one of the tip that I would give is get your hands dirty, because you never know what you like until you try it, or you don't like, right? I think Madeline has that experience as well. Me on the same boat. I was in consulting, and then after 3 years, I feel like I'm done. I need to move on. And then I moved on to this program. And during the program, as a full-time student, I had 3 internships going on simultaneously, and one being in the admissions office with the program. Which is a very interesting job to have, a very interesting internship. So working with prospective students, introducing them with the program and helping international students to adapt to the US and help them with the career path. So that's very interesting experience for me. And then another thing is grasp every opportunity you have. So say if you're interested in private equity, don't be scared of the big name of the big arena that you're heading into. Look up opportunities, look up internships. Don't be afraid. Reach out to anyone that you know on LinkedIn who shares the background, who works in the industry, and seek out and arrange coffee chats. I think that's really helpful. For me, I had an internship with a private equity company while I was in Colombia. It was an unpaid internship, but the experience that I got out of that is tremendously helpful for me to secure my current position. So definitely get your hands dirty. Don't be afraid. Don't sit around. That's my one of the tip that I have.
That's good. I work in the technology sector and coffee chats are like the thing. And you have so many coffee chats a day. I think you're like pinging off the wall by like 3 or 4 o'clock because you've had so much coffee. You're so caffeinated. So that's a thing. Like it's really a thing if people are wondering out there. I really appreciate your pro tips coming from like the full-time student who was doing the program full-time, but you were also managing multiple internships. And then you didn't have a ton of actual tactical experience, right, in the workplace, but you were able to do that through the internship opportunities. So I think that's great. If you don't mind, I like to add, I'm the other side of the coin. So I have pro tips for those people who are in the program that may be part-time and who do have professional experience, right? And I think Madeline spoke on it earlier, right? Everyone's career path is not the same. Everyone isn't always vertical or lateral. People have different stories about how they land where they do. And for me, I think one of the things that I recommend for anyone, you could be, with experience or not, but for those who actually have experience and are working, I recommend you lean on the opportunities that the university offers you. Particularly for me, there was an opportunity presented between the Career Learning Center and the Risk Management Association of New York. And what it was is they were offering a mentorship to students who are enrolled in the program. And when you think of mentorship, you normally think about, someone who's looking to get guidance in their career, doesn't have a lot of experience, but I don't see it that way. I think that, as Madeline said earlier, a lifelong learner, someone who has goals and aspirations, I think you always need to have someone who's ahead of you to lead you and coach you. I think of my personal and professional life more like the 3 lines of defense, right? So I need that board of directors over me to kind of, guide me and have oversight over my career. And so I applied for it and I was able to get into it. And I specifically asked for an executive level practitioner if I could, because I have, high career aspirations, right? I want to get to the C-suite. So I wanted someone who walked that walk and had that journey and kind of give me insights and some pro tips and, things that they may have done wrong that they don't want to see the next person do. And so it's been great for me, right? Shout out to Yvonne. If you're listening, you have been amazing for me. You have coached me. You have nurtured me. You've pulled things out of me and stretched me in ways you probably didn't know. But all her hard work last semester, I was going some things in my current role, and she just was like, in the morning, I want you to take a sticky note. And I want you, by the end of the day, you write down at least 4 or 5 things that you've done at that current role that's going to get you to the C-suite. And she literally was blunt with me and said, there won't be anything on the list, I promise you. Because what she was trying to do is to nudge me in that, yes, the role was optimal, was a great title, but it wasn't giving me the technical and tactical, opportunities that would actually get me to the next level. And without her encouraging me, there's a little bit of comfort and chaos if we stay somewhere long enough. And so she coached me and molded me and through the experience here, my professional experience, but also with Yvonne's coaching, over the holiday season, I had multiple job offers. And so I was able to, move forward with one that I think is optimal for where I am today, but it's also going to get me to the next level, which I'm going to begin in a few weeks. So it's a more senior management level ERM position. And I'm really excited about it. And I want to, just really say that coaching and that opportunity and that nudging wasn't going to be available to me unless I sought this out from the program. In addition to that, she's connected me with so many other people and risk management societies here where I am in Philadelphia and New York. She's connected me with other students who are similarly situated, right? Other full-time professionals in the program. We have our own coffee chats now, and it's really a thing for me. And so I'm really grateful for that. So I do encourage those who are working, you have experience, don't shut yourself out, be a lifelong learner, and always keep yourself open to opportunities. Mentorship and internship is not something that's clearly defined for a full-time student or people without experience. Seek it out, and you never know what you can get out of it. Look at me. So I just wanted to put a plug in. And once again, thank you, Yvonne, if you're in the room. I really appreciate all you've done and that you're doing and that I know you're going to do for me as I prosper my career. All right, shameless plug for Yvonne there.
And Shireen, if my, go ahead, ma'am.
Oh, no worries. Sorry. So Shireen, I just wanted to say, like, I really enjoyed that story. I really liked how, you know, you're also a part-time student, because I was one myself. And so I know exactly kind of how your experience must have felt, because, you know, honestly, I felt that being online, you know, you have so many advantages. And, you know, although you're online and you're working, you know, or doing something else, you know, you still have the same opportunities to connect with those, you know, mentors, you know, maybe meet with academic advisor, utilize any of the career resources at the school, right? Go to those networking and informational events, just to name a few, you know, coffee chats, similar to both of, you know, Shireen and Audrey, like those are really big in my current company as well. Like I've had, you know, I started my job a couple months ago and I've already had like maybe 20 coffee chats just with folks all over the organization from all different departments. And like, it's so interesting, you know, and it's like I'm making friends, right? So I learned so much beyond just like the, you know, scope of just my own job. I really get to learn, you know, kind of what the culture is on an organizational scale. And so just wanted to say, definitely make sure you take advantage of any coffee chats, and people are so approachable. Like I promise, you know, a lot of people love coffee or tea. So just, you know, make sure to take advantage of those opportunities. And then also I did just want to add as well, you know, you can be involved in clubs too. Like I was in the Columbia Risk Management Club when I was a part-time student, and I really enjoyed that club. Highly recommend it to anyone who's not in it and maybe considering joining a club. I thought that was really a great opportunity to network with my fellow classmates and really be involved in the program. So, you know, because you're a part-time student doesn't mean you can't get involved. You absolutely can. You know, it's all there for you. You just kind of have to look for it, you know, those opportunities, but they're there.
Yeah, who needs sleep, right? Seize the opportunities, figure it out. I know sometimes I say to myself, like, I'm at work and people say, like, how do you do it? I'm like, I don't know. I just do it. And I think it's just because people like us have such high solution and goal orientations. When you set out to do something, you're going to do it, right? By any means necessary. And I always say, can you have it all? Yes, you can, just not at the same time. And so when you're doing all this, you're doing it at the expense of other things. But right now, this goal is a priority for you. And so I love that you said that, Madeline. Like, just because you're a full-time employee and a part-time student, it doesn't have to have like a badge on you where you can't engage, you can't get involved, and you can't be connected, right? Whether you're physically in New York or if you're remote as well, like seek out those opportunities. Now, I may not be able to do yoga or mindfulness training at noon because I'm actually in a work call, but I can figure out how to get connected to those other things because a lot of the programs are very flexible. The advisors are flexible, the mentors are flexible, and they work full-time too. Some of them teach in the program, they run their own businesses, they have a lot going on too. And I feel like if they can make the time for it, I don't have any excuse. I have to figure out how to show up and you know, be prepared and bring my whole self to those conversations so that they feel like they're not wasting their time, that they're trying to invest in me. So that's my shout out there. But I know, Karthik, you wanted to add to this conversation, so please keep it coming.
Sure. No, I just want to provide another perspective because I was a full-time student, but I had 12 years experience. So I took a mid-career break to become a full-time student. So I went back to school back in 2016. And, you know, first time in the US. So I used to live in India and then took more than a decade in Dubai before I moved to the US for this program. And now, and it was completely new, but now felt at home. And, you know, I would say, you know, before now mentorship and the clubs that Madeline mentioned, we were the first batch of the full-time program, and we kind of designed it. And you know, I'm glad to see that it's still working well, and you know, people are benefiting out of it. So, but the faculty are amazing. The faculty of the program, they are real-time practitioners of risk management in their day-to-day lives, and you know, so it's very organic the way you know you connect with them. and the way they share their knowledge, their experience, and that network kind of has become what the alumni network of the ERM program at SPSS. And to your point, Shreen, prepare yourself. I would say just two things. When I started, I had a very clear idea of what I wanted from this program and what my course structure should be. That's very contrasting to what Audrey did, because she experimented a few things before she landed where she wanted. I was very specific. Downsides to that, because even before I got into the program, I was very clear what I wanted to do. But I picked a couple of industries that I really want to focus on, and I learned everything that is possible about those industries. I landed in a different industry, which is another story altogether. But it helps you connect with the people from those industries, because risk management as a body of work and knowledge itself is very specific. But the whole crux is having that strategic lens. So you need to connect with that industry, know what's the primary drivers, what that industry is there to serve. So it's a good conversation starter. We spoke about the coffee chats, so that's the preparedness. So you talk to them in their language, talk to them about their industry, and then you tell them like the skill sets that you have. That is an easy connect with people, and and I think that's a good thing, and it builds your knowledge. It never hurts to learn more. So try to pick a couple of industries and know as much as possible, and see apply for your own benefit. The risk management that you see. Read the 10Ks, 10Qs. We did that as part of the project work, but there are so many great things that I discovered. Like, I was a practitioner of risk management for 12 years before I came to the program, and even today, there are enough things to learn new, because it's a dynamic field. Those are my thoughts on that.
No, I think you highlight a really key thing, and I don't think we talked about it enough, but I think it's so important that most, if not all, of the professors in this program, they're working practitioners. And that goes a long way, right? Nothing against those that are full-time academics, right? But the fact that most of our professors actually do the work, right? They work full-time too. And I encourage you, if you're currently enrolled in a program, start to interact and engage during class. When the professors say, do you have any questions, do you want to jump in? Do that, because it makes a more fruitful conversation, and it helps you connect the teachings to real life, right? And so for me, I bring my burdens to class, right? I come to class and I'm like, oh, professor, you're going to stay for 5 minutes? And I'll say, sure. And I'll say, listen, I'm having this problem at work. I cannot get the IT group to really buy into what I'm trying to tell them about the cyber risk. And they give me pro tips. We exchange ideas. And then the next week, they're like, what happened? Like, they want to know, like, did it happen? Oh, well, it's not you, it's the culture there, and try this. And so I love that personally, just for my own professional development. And it's also helping with those soft skills, but technical at the same time. But being taught by those who are doing the work is, I can't stress how important that is. This is my third master, so I've been in school for a very long time. I hope it's my last one. I think my husband hopes so as well, but I've been doing this a long time, and I haven't always been taught by people who are doing the work. And I think it's imperative to have people who know what the field entails, what the strengths and the weaknesses and what the opportunities are, so they can actually give you insights into what didn't work for them or what may work for you. I think that's really, really critical to the work we're doing and the work that we're going to set out to do in the world. And you did have a very unconventional path, Karthik, as well. I just love we have a great mix of people. You have people who are full-time, people who were working and then stopped and said they want to be full-time, and Madeline's part-time, and she did it. So I think that that's a testament too, that you can come from all different walks of life, different journeys, different career paths, different backgrounds, and this is a great environment for everyone to come together, leverage their backgrounds and their differences and their diversities to come out of this with the most, right? It's what you make of it. So again, like I said, I've been doing this it's my second year of the program, and we've had our good days, our stressful days, and we've had some that were just, great, more stressful than not, but finals are over. But it's a well-rounded program taught by, leaders in the sector, right? Who are really experienced in different areas of risk across the globe, right? I had a professor last semester, he was teaching here, and then he was promoted to a job in London. So he had to stop teaching in the middle of the semester because he had another opportunity, right? That's just a testament to we're real working people here. And so no worries, we had a great, professor come in. Bob, you came in and saved the day. It was a great time, but it was really good to see your teachers still climbing the career ladder for themselves, right? So I just think that's a really good way to kind of wrap up the program, the aggregate of it. So all right, so for the sake of time, I think we kind of talked through this, but if there's anything else, any of you, Audrey, Karthik, Madeline, that you think like any 1 or 2 points of advice that you can give to those who are in the program now, who've never had exposure to the risk profession, right? Besides the things you talked about, is it one or two things that you can give them to say, hey, I want to shift careers, or I'm just getting out into the career sector the first time, but I'm sure I want to work in the risk space. Is there one thing you can tell them to help them get their foot in the door?
I would say be flexible. When I started out, when I was in the program, I was such a strong believer in the value-based ERM work, and I spoke or interviewed with so many companies, and and they were at different stages of having risk management. So it's always good to find that find a role that kind of fits to your expectations. But when you are a candidate, try to understand what's the requirement of that role, and now try to be flexible. The program, value based is the cornerstone of the program, but they introduce you to other different tracks of risk management, and there is no one best solution. It's what each company and its leadership wants to do. So now you can apply your skill sets at different roles. Let it be in a very specific, let's say, segment of risk or a holistic ERM role. The skill sets can be easily applied to at different levels at different industries. So be open, be flexible, and and let things excite you, and listen to understand what they expect from you as a candidate and as a risk professional, and what kind of value they want you to bring onto the table. So I think that's very critical, because I did the mistake of kind of advocating to things that I believe in, which really didn't work, right? So no, don't make the same mistake.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, me too. Oh no, I just wanted to add to that. Is it okay if I give 3 pieces of advice?
As many as you like.
All right, thank you. So, for students that are looking to break into risk management, especially from a degree program, there are 3 pieces of advice that I always say. First is internships. So, that could be coordinated through the university or, separately on your own. They're a good way to get your foot in the door and give you also hands-on working experience, even if it's not necessarily an internship that you want, like you kind of have more of an idea of what you don't want when you do them too. So, kind of look at it that way. It's just really helping you build on your experience. If the second thing I would say, and I know we've been harping on it a lot during the conversation, is build your network and relationships. If you're just starting out, reach out to people in companies or industries that you're interested in working in. Even if you're unsure of where you want to go or what you want to do, any discussions will probably lead you to insights that will help you make a better decision, right? So try to find a mentor in a company or a field that you want to pursue and really pay attention to what they have to say, and also ask questions, right? Like a lot of people want to help, and then third, what I wanted to add was, this is expanding on what Karthik was talking about with being flexible. Please examine your previous work experience and utilize that. It's possible that in your past work, you had some elements of risk management without you even realizing it at the time, right? So think about past jobs, because I've done that before in roles that I've applied into. And I've thought of, okay, think about it from like a risk management perspective, and then also just use that to help you word your resume. For example, maybe you worked in like a communications role, right? Or in some other job that's dealing with the public. And as a result, you kind of had some parts of your job that tied into reputational risk for the company, managing that. So, anything of like thinking about it critically in that way will be really helpful. That's kind of how I was able to use my previous experiences to apply into roles that I didn't necessarily have a ton of experience in that specific specialty, but because of my skills, being transferable, it made me successful. I work with talented risk professionals from all sorts of backgrounds, whether it's audit, law, technology, operations, accounting, you name it. So, these are people that came from all walks of life. And so, they've been able to, and they're working on my team. It's not like they work in different teams. So we've all been able to leverage our experience to help us get to where we are today. And so, I just wanted to give that piece of advice. I think regardless of whatever scenario you fall into and where you are in your career, the most important thing is just to remember to keep learning and keeping that growth mindset.
Yes, absolutely. And Audrey, is there anything you want to add? No pressure. Is there anything you want to add to the conversation?
There's actually one thing I want to add on to both Madeline and Karthik, what they're saying. I think it's key to identify your own skill set. everybody has a different skill set. It's important to identify what you're interested in and what you're good at. I know, like for beginners who have no experience, you kind of get lost in the job search process, because you see the job board and you see a list of your keyword is probably risk, and then maybe following by another keyword, operational or financial, and then you see the list of open positions and you can tell like, oh, maybe I can fit into this one, maybe I can fit into that one. But then you kind of get lost in the process, which is what happened to me, that I feel like I can get into any type of role. But I think eventually what's more important for the success of your job, your position is you're really interested in that, and you have the skill set to successfully to do it, to own it, and to contribute value. One piece of advice is don't get lost in the process. Know your self-worth, know what you're good at, and then go for it.
Love it. And so I know we're approaching time, but I want to recap for those out there who are taking notes, right? I heard flexibility, right? I think that's just life in general. Be flexible, right? Karthik told you his plan, and then look how he's more successful than what his plan was, but he was flexible, right? And then we talked about internships and building a network. And I think the network is great. And the one thing I want to add to the network is you can also network with your classmates, right? So for me, I'm in a class with people who don't have any experience, people who are executives. And so you never know who's in the room. And when you're on the group projects, show yourself, show your capabilities. You know, I had a role that was available early in the year. It was a more junior role for risk, but I had someone who I worked with in the last semester, and he did great work. And he was front of mind for me when I had the opportunity, right? We're going to put it on the job board, but I said, I have someone. And you know how it goes in the corporate space. If the internal network has a candidate, they're going to get, moved to the front of the line, because if you're a great employee, they're going to take your word. So just network within your class as well, right? Look at people's bios in Canvas. They have their story in there, what they do, where they work at, what their background is. So try to network with those folks as well. Align yourselves. And if you have your pick, get on those teams with those people, learn from them, see how they operate, see how they think, see how they work in a team environment. I mean, I heard Audrey say, identify your skill set, market it accordingly, know your value proposition, right? Know your worth, right? Dollars and cents, but also your technical and tactical competencies, and be ready to tell that to any recruiter or any hiring manager when you have those conversations. And so the one thing I want to build on quickly that Karthik mentioned earlier is pull the 10K for any firm that's public that you're interviewing with, because you should know the company better than they do, right? The risk factors tell you the risk register right there. We know it's a little surface, but you can dig deep and use your skills from here to kind of elaborate. Hiring managers love that when you're on the phone with them, you're like, well, I can see this risk, and I think you have a huge opportunity to work upon your third-party vendor management risk. And they're like, what are you talking about? How did you know that? They're impressed that you've done the work, you know their strategy, you know their weaknesses, and you come to those conversations, not just with the standard interview answers, but also solutions. And that's just something that comes from being a risk manager. But if you come to the table with that, simply by doing the research of pulling a 10K and studying it a bit, you put yourself in a separate bucket from the other candidates, to Audrey's point about knowing your value and putting it out there. So that's just my pro tip there for those people who are looking to get into the sector who have not done it before. The risks are free. They're printed in the 10K. Spoiler alert. All right, so we are approaching time. So I want to say this. First and foremost, this was such a great conversation and discussion. I hope that the audience enjoyed it just as much as I did. I think, speaking of the audience, right, I think it's time, if we could, get them involved in this conversation. If we have the panelists can hang around for a few more minutes, we like to get the audience involved. And so we're going to shift gears to our Q&A session. If you have not done so already, please, I encourage you to enter a question or two into the chat box, and we'll try to get to as many as we can as time permits. But it looks like we have one question that came in already, and doesn't matter who jumps in on this from the panel. The question is, what are one or two ideas that you may have come into the program with that were dispelled by the end of your education here? So one thing that you thought was you were firm in it, or was true about risk or your career, that by the time you were done your studies here, that's not true. That could be further from the truth, right? What's one thing, if you could think of something?
I can take that question or add to it. So, I mean, prior to the program, I'd say I was always pretty risk adverse. During my first semester at Columbia, I remember one of my professors was talking about like upsides to risk, and I just really didn't know what that meant, or I didn't really understand, what exactly does that mean. But, it was kind of funny now looking back, because I felt like at the time I wasn't looking at the bigger picture. You know, people have a tendency to look at like the negatives of risk or like the consequences of it, you know, especially if you don't have like that, you know, that prior experience. But, you know, from what I was able to learn was it's not only necessary to look at the downsides, but you also have to look at the upsides. And with those upsides, you know, you do come with your opportunities. Especially, so I am really thankful for that learning that I learned pretty early on in the semester. It was like literally like week 1. So yeah, that kind of just shows how the program forced me to think critically and also just see the bigger picture, understand how risks are interconnected, right? Like they're all over the organization. And also you want to make sure you're balancing your risk and your reward. You know, it's not all bad, but you also want to be able to add value and improve on those potential opportunities. So that was something that I thought was like really funny looking back. And then yeah, I can go on, but I'll allow it to see if Audrey or Karthik or someone else has any other input.
Feel free to jump in, Audrey and Karthik.
I would say no, I came from an internal audit and risk controls background before I came to the program, and it always weighed higher compared to the external facing risk for an organization, and that completely got shifted in even the first quarter at Columbia. Like one of the programs I took was systemic risk, and the whole course was about how things that are totally how you can take an abstract concept and then apply it elsewhere and see how interconnected things are. And that was amazing, and it just made me start thinking at different level and kind of set the tone for for the rest of the program for me actually. And then just the interconnectedness, to Madeline's point, these risks, and today it makes so much more sense with everything that's happening. When you talk about risk, and part of my job is to scan what's out there in the external environment, and now you take the 2023 key risk. It's climate change, geopolitical risk, and financial volatility. And nothing is specific to any of the organizations. It's all universal. So how are these impacting each one of our organizations? And that's the essence of the work that we do. So.
Yep, I think you're spot on. And if you haven't done so already, you can literally Google year-end 22 risk reports, and you'll see they're free. You can start to see all the aggregated. They talk to all the executives, the boards, and from all these global companies, and you will see that they're pretty much spot on in terms of how they're aligned with the key risks are going into the new year. And he's correct. I will add one other thing. I would say that for me, one of the things I thought when I came to this, all frameworks were created equal. So you can just go into any company, plop down COSO or ISO and start. That was dispelled for me really early on, because the takeaway from that is that the framework is just the framework. And if you don't implement it and execute in a way that's right sized for the company you're operating in, their culture, their operational footprint, the way in which people are engaged and see risk, you're never going to get the engagement, right? So yes, you need those governing, guiding global frameworks, but you need to figure out how to right size them and make them work within your ecosystem, right? Because referring to, the 86 principles, or points of focus of COSO don't really work well. You really need to figure out how to make it digestible and accessible in the company and the organization you're working within, right? Don't stray away from them, fundamentally, but you have to figure out how to make them work. And that was something that was dispelled early on for me in my studies here. I know we're almost at time, but there's one other question, there's a few other questions. And I think one of the questions is, could we share any tips other than networking for international students who are looking for a job? And I think we touched on that a little bit in our last piece, right? Be flexible, leverage those job boards out there, pull those 10Ks. Global companies all have some type of public filing if they're, public firms. You can look them up online through the investor relations page on the company, right? Leverage your network. You can be anywhere in the world, but you're in one space when you're taking your lecture. You're all in the same room. And so leveraging that network.
And if I may add, start early, because for an international student, the processing times are longer than usual. So start early.
Yep, I hope that answered your question. And Audrey, we want to get you in here for the last few minutes we have here. This person says, thank you so much for all the sharing you did tonight, all the insights, and it may be a bit of overlap, but I was wondering if, one or two of the panelists could give any type of career paths for people who are seeking risk professions in either the banking and or the insurance industry. I'm assuming this is someone who doesn't have much experience. So is there like an optimal role for like an entry-level banking risk professional or insurance industry professional that you can give them so they can look up?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that first of all, you need to define yourself whether you're quantitative or more qualitative. So in banking industry, you obviously you have the front office. As a risk professional, you can also join the front office. There's always middle office that are doing risk control in the first office and in the first line. I'm sorry, in the first line, and then you have the second line who are overseeing the entire stripe, right, or overseeing the entire firm. So I think one thing you need to do is identify yourself as more quantitative or more qualitative. And then once you figure out that path, you can start either in market risk, if you're more interested in market indicators, economic indicators, models, more numbers related, or you can step into credit risk. It's more obligor related. You analyze companies, you analyze your clients, you analyze deal level transactions. So there are various paths that you can take, but if you don't have any previous job experience, I suggest you get in an internship first. No matter which department it is, it's all interconnected. At the end of the day, as long as you step into the firm as the first step, then you can network your way in the firm. And then you can also talk to your colleagues from different departments to learn about different job functions in the bank. So my suggestion is get an internship first, define your path, and then get an internship in a bank and get your hands dirty, as I said before, and start from there.
Thank you so much. All right, so we are at time. Unfortunately, it was a great conversation start to finish. I can't stress that enough. The chat box, we're getting great feedback. People said, thank you so much for all the advice, the tips. This is so inspiring. Some people have asked to get the email address of the people participating today so they can follow up if that's possible. The university has said that they will coordinate to get that with you offline. And I just would like to say on behalf of the university, the School of Professional Studies, and all the attendees, we want to extend our gratitude to all the panelists who showed up tonight, but also showed up and contributed so much, right? A little goes a long way. You have no idea how much you may have said today may help someone so much tomorrow. We thank you for the time, your shared insights, your wealth of experience. We look forward to seeing you, Madeline, maybe in a class or two in the coming weeks, given that you're going to be teaching us. And Karthik and Audrey, we're sure we'll see you as you continue to stay engaged as alumnus of the university. And with that, this concludes our session. We wish everyone a great evening.